I don't know. Well, first off, this isn't going to be a very long commentary, and I don't know when this particular video is going to go up. I don't know if it's going to be before or after the Sean Urbanski trial. But in this picture, you see a sketch, and in this picture, well, it's a picture I found online, and it's the only picture I could really find of Judge Lawrence Hill, and he is the judge that is presiding over the Sean Urbanski trial. And I circled his face so y'all could see who he is. And just looking at the sketch and how it's drawn now, Judge Lawrence Hill is indeed a black man. Now, the reason why I'm making this video is because one of the most, I guess you can say, shocking, but not so shocking at the same time, but still shocking if you get what I mean. Things that came out of this case is that the hate crime charge that was sticking to Sean Urbanski for the longest, I'm talking about since before the trial even began, ended up getting dropped mere minutes after the defense rest. Like, after the defense rested, before they give their closing arguments, the next day, you had Judge Lawrence Hill come back and drop the hate crime charges literally the day after he basically said that the hate crime charges wasn't going to get dropped, they were going to stick. And I had some people say, that it wasn't a big deal because Sean Urbanski was still, if he gets convicted and he's found guilty, he'll still face life in prison without the possibility of parole. That's not really the point. Yes, I'll be glad, should that be the outcome of the whole situation, but it's the fact that this was a hate crime through and through. A lot of people were saying, well, if this wasn't a hate crime, then what is? Like, they had all the evidence right there. The prosecutors laid it out as plainly as they possibly could. They fought tooth and nail to make sure that the evidence to prove this was a hate crime stayed in this trial for months. I have been following this case for the last 2.5 going on 3 years, to the point where I could have been part of this particular case. I've been following it ever since the day that he was murdered, and I told my subscribers back then on my original channel I was going to stick by this case all the way to the end, and we are almost at the end. There are not a lot of stories that I can come across where I will stay on top of unless I feel very, very passionate about it. And then I have to stay on top of stories like this because a lot of times people will forget when this kind of stuff happens. Like, you'll find out maybe when the trial starts, and then you'll find out what happens when it ends, but you don't know what goes on in between. And I'm glad that I was able to stick to my word, especially with the load of emails that I get every single day, or DMs I get every day on my various social media accounts, that I still have time to worry about a story that's over 2 years old and running and counting. But the point of this is that this was a hate crime. The hate crime charge for Sean Urbanski, if y'all remember when I did my video, was only going to be 20 years. Remember, the murder charge, which is still on the table, gives him life without parole. The hate crime charge was an additional 20 years. But it's not the fact that they took away that. It's not the fact that he would get the life without parole. We'll be glad if that's the outcome, because that's the one that I think will probably happen. But I don't want to get my hopes up on that. It's the fact that the removal of the hate crime charge sets a precedent that they are making it seem like it is damn near impossible to sentence these palm-colored peons with any type of hate crime, even when a hate crime is pretty much evident. Like I said, look with Dylan Roof. South Carolina, up until Dylan Roof's case trial, did not have a hate crime law on the books. They had to create one in recent years just to charge him with a hate crime. Maryland has had a hate crime law on the books forever. Now, Maryland does not have a death penalty. It doesn't have capital punishment. So to all of my subscribers saying he needs to and deserves the death penalty, I agree. He does deserve the death penalty, but Maryland doesn't honor it. And to be honest, I'd rather him get the life without the parole, because with the death penalty, who knows how long it's going to take before he gets it. Like I said, with the killers of James Byrd back in the late 90s, the final killer, the person who was involved, like the main person, didn't get his lethal cocktail until April of this year. And that incident happened 21 years ago. So who knows how long it's going to be. And look at Dylan Roof. What he did was back in 2015. Here we are in 2019, and he's still on death row 4 years later. So we don't know when he's going to get his lethal injection. And see, without parole, without the possibility of parole and with life imprisonment, that doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. You put someone on the death penalty or death row, that's the taxpayers' money still up keeping them alive until the day they get on that table. And who knows when that actually happens. The death penalty does not happen in a vacuum. It's not a microwave. It happens over time. But the fact that this judge, who is a black man himself, who knows that another black man who was in the military got murdered by this piece of shit, this demonic entity, and they heard all the evidence, saw everything, saw the surveillance, heard the witnesses, and decided at the very last minute to drop the hate crime charges because you believed what those defense lawyers were saying about him just being drunk. They played that to the T. So they couldn't play it no more and rest it, and you came back after they rested and decided to drop the charge. Not before, but after. All he had to do was just sit there and let it just ride on out. If that had happened, it would have made the prosecutor's closing arguments that much easier. Now, like I said in my other video, they got to work twice as hard to convince that jury to make those first-degree murder charges stick. If they can't convince them of that and the defense attorney pulls another rabbit out of their hat, they can lessen the charge. It said so in the article I read. That's one thing you don't want to happen, because if they lessen the charge, he won't serve life without parole. He'll just get a few years and he'll be out. He most likely will have to be on some kind of lifetime probation or lifetime watch or some sort because he killed somebody. Meanwhile, you have black men who are just now getting out of jail for 36 years recently out of Baltimore. 36 years in jail since the 80s for a crime they didn't commit. You just got another man who spent 22 years in jail because one of the attorneys knew he messed up his case and decided to try to taint the jury pool from 1992 to 2017 in order to throw off his the person's fair trial usage. Yet they want to snatch away, this person snatches away the hate crime charge that you know was a hate crime. Stuff like this makes me sick to my stomach. Sean Urbanski deserves every bit of consequence that he has coming his way. Every time do you know how hard it is for me to have to do a video day after day giving updates, having to put Sean Urbanski's picture up there of that smug look on his face, like he has no remorse for what he did, and he doesn't. He has no remorse for what he did. And you know what? I rather would deal with my races out in the open rather than someone who's trying to hide it. All the evidence was there. Him being a part of those palm color supremacist so-called groups online. Who knows what else he was doing offline. But all they chalked it up to, or tried to chalk it up to, was him being drunk and killing somebody. Like I said, they're trying to make it seem like this was an accident. But I will say this, though. His defense is not denying that it was murder. I noticed that. Sean Urbanski's defense, as far as I know, is not denying it was murder. They just denied that it was a hate crime. Even they know that it was a hate crime, but they're trying to help their client get a lesser charge, or they're trying to set it up where it's a possibility he can get an appeal. Because I don't think you can appeal a hate crime charge if you're found guilty of one. So they're trying to set this up for an appeal. How much you want to bet they are going to appeal whatever sentencing? If it's a guilty sentencing, they're going to try to appeal it. Because like I said, the murder charge is still on the table. So he can still get sent away for life. But like I said, the prosecutor has to prove to the jury that without the shadow of a doubt that this was first degree murder. That means they can't even go into this saying that or talking about a hate crime. That can no longer be discussed. They can't convince the jury of a hate crime anymore. It is off the table. So now they have to go down. This judge literally caused them to be knocked down a peg. And when I heard about how his mother collapsed in tears because she probably knows what possibly can come from this, that hate crime charge was a huge line of defense for them to be sure that he would be sent away for life. Now it's back up in the air, and it's almost like you got to wait to see what lands. So to the people out there that says that it's not a big deal, or he's still going to get life in prison, or if he's found guilty, now you know why. Now you just got my explanation in over 10 minutes as to why it actually is a big deal. When you think about it, it's kind of scary because you don't know what's going to happen now. Now, like I said, if the hate crime charge is stuck, then you could damn near get ready to pop the bottle of champagne. But right now, just keep your celebrations at bay until further notice. I'll talk to you in the next one.